Welcome to this edition of the People's Playbook podcast. Excited for this edition. Neil Nicholson's joining us today, who is the CEO of Powerhouse Controls. What's amazing about Neil's kind of journey is he's been there for 25 years, right? So when you are a CEO and you lead a company from a startup to, a global automation leader right now, that's pretty impressive. And there must be some leadership principles and some team dynamics that we can learn from Neil. In his spare time, Neil actually serves as the Ontario Snowmobile Club's on their board. I'm sure that takes up more time than he thinks as a volunteer. But let's dive into it today and just find out the insights and kind of stuff we can steal from Neil along the way. So welcome to the podcast, Neil.
Thanks very much, Jason. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Neil, again, you heard that intro, and I'm talking about 25 years in a company and starting from, probably an idea and hey, what can we do here to, let's introduce ourselves to the sector to now being a global automation leader. I know it's crazy when you hear it like that, right? In the path. And probably, Neil, you're probably a little surprised on how fast it actually went, right?
It's not where I expected to be, frankly, when I joined. Powerhouse has been around for 33 years. We're in our 33rd year, and I kind of joined the company as like their fifth employee, and then kind of just got into this role over time. Always saw myself as a leader. Wasn't sure if I was actually a CEO material, but kind of as the firm evolved, kind of stepped up in that role, and I have been thoroughly enjoying the journey, as most would call it.
Yeah. Yeah. If you look at kind of where you started and again, earning your way up to CEO, what's the one core leadership principle that's guided you along the way throughout those years at Powerhouse?
It's sometimes people call it cliche, but we use empower a lot within our organization. This is built into our mission statement, stuff like that. But it's empowering your people, right? You're only as good as the team you have with you. And the best way to grow your company is to make sure that you're empowering those individuals to make sure they're making as best decisions as they can, giving them the freedom to do what you hired them to do, by trusting in their work and by working with them and together and collaborating together. It's about the team. It's always about the team. Yes, we make products, we build systems that we then implement into the industrial marketplace, but without the people, you have nothing.
Yeah. You can have all the systems and processes you want, but without people, it doesn't get done. Right.
100%.
You said a key word there, trust. And
Mm.
a lot of great CEOs and leaders say that, a communication and trust. So if I could, ask you to kind of look in your coffers and say, what's the
Mm.
one thing that the team has actually taught you about leadership that you didn't expect to learn from them?
Interesting. So there's lots I've learned over the last number of years. I mean, we are a people company, right? I mean, we've grown. Like I said, I was the fifth employee. We're getting close to almost 70 people. It was very interesting from a trust perspective, and this is one where I had to learn about transparency. So my team, my executive team, pushed us to become more and more transparent. And what really I didn't expect was how well they handled that, handled the level of transparency. I mean, we divulged many, many things I never thought we would as an organization. But I feel by doing that and trusting our employees to have that information, it gets reflected back to us. They then are able to handle when things get a little bit tough. We have some great discussions, and they're not scared of it, right? Because we're not just talking about things when they're pretty and beautiful and they look like rainbows and butterflies. We're also talking about we can also talk about when things might be going a little bit south, right? So I mean, obviously with the U.S. and the global economy and the way it's trending right now, we need to be a bit careful. But we're okay having those discussions with our employees because they trust us.
Yeah, you have some tough conversations for sure and direct conversations. You actually, great segue into what I wanted to get into next. So, how do you actually keep your team aligned and motivated during those high pressure projects and tough times along the way? So, you are specifically based on your business, you're feeling that the stuff that's going on with the economy in the world right now. So, how do you keep the team aligned and motivated?
Yeah. So the key to I mean, and a huge motivating factor for everyone is, and I call it, and we do it in our management team, it's roll up your sleeves. I don't have any today, but it is all about being available for your team. It's all about I have your back, right? So we work together as a team. There's no one that's untouchable. There's no like we're having a problem in the middle of the weekend. I am available. And again, of course, we're trying to strive for a bit of work-life balance, but you know when you need to have your teams back. And every one of my managers is understands that the priority is our people. You need to support them. If they're having an issue, you're there. Like I'll see it on our teams chats. They'll come up and glow, and there'll be a whole bunch like I'm struggling with this, and I'm absolutely blown away by the number of people who contribute after hours or because they get it. They've been there, right? So if our managers lead by example like that, it helps permeate that culture throughout the organization, especially in those high pressure moments.
So I believe in if you're a visible leader, you can get so much more done, right? And what you're saying is, hey, all hands on deck, right? All hands on deck,
Mm-hmm.
and almost leave your ego at the door. Doesn't
Yes.
matter what position or title you hold. We're a team, and let's go at this together.
100%.
Yeah. When we're talking about culture, what do you do and what metrics are in place to actually make your people feel proud at work every day and just wanting to keep on thriving that culture that you built along the way?
Yeah. I mean, it is, the like I think I've used that example already. It's that when the proud moments I see, and there's multiple, all kinds of them. Obviously, it's feedback from our clients. It's seeing that level of engagement from the team when someone's in trouble, the rolling up the sleeves and seeing that happen because that is so important to everything we do. Because if you can claim you have a team, but if they're not working together to solve problems, you're not going to get the same type of engagement. So that's what when I'm proud of the team, I see, I'll step back during like a customer visit to our manufacturing shop and watch our team members describe what we do and you can see in their faces how proud they are of what we've accomplished and what we're doing. They're so passionate about it, and I'm not saying it. It's coming from the team members. So, the customers look at it, they're looking at me like, "Well, why aren't you talking?" It's their stuff. This is their show. This is that they're proud of. So that really gives me a sense of pride when I can see our team members step up and talk about the organization in a way that shows the pride in the work that they're doing.
The two pillars, right? Trust and communication.
Mm.
When you were building your leadership team, and I'm sure the leadership team changes all the time, right? What
Yeah.
do you look for when you're building your leadership team that makes sure that the team is going to work well and gel together?
Yeah. So I think we have three pillars for hiring, and I think it permeates even more strongly when it comes into the leadership team, and that is initiative, work ethic, and intelligence. So what we are doing, because we are in the process of growing quite rapidly now, is I've really during my last town hall talked about succession planning, and a part of that is we have to continuously identify our high potentials. We have to challenge them throughout the process. We need to identify where they might be struggling, help them through that, and make sure that they have a path so that we're not afraid to promote and we try to promote as much as possible within then versus hiring outside. We do have to hire outside obviously from time to time, but I always prefer promoting from within because it's just an easier transition. They understand the business, they understand the people, but we have to make sure they're ready for it because there's nothing like dropping someone into a leadership role. They're not prepared and then they fail. And it's not fair to them either. So really and there's some individuals that we have to have those tough conversations with. Say, you're not ready yet, but if you want to do this, here's a path to make this happen. So we want to make sure you're prepared. We want to invest in you, and it's got to be a two-way street. But that's how we look at leadership promotions within the organization.
Yeah, show them the path that they have to take, help them get there, establish trust, give them permission to make mistakes along the way, as long as they're not $1 million mistakes.
Again, exactly. It's fail fast, fail cheap, right? So that's what we constantly look at when it comes to failure, right? Like, I
Yeah,
trust me, I'm a control freak as an engineer by nature. I want to control everything, but you just you can't, right? You have to allow, and that's where the trust factor comes in. You set the boundaries, you set kind of the guardrail. I say you can operate in any lane you want, but you need to come back to me if you think you're going to go in. I don't want you playing out in the rhubarb, right, and getting stuck and causing huge problems to the company. Check in, right? Bring questions, right? And that's what I do tons. Ask questions ask more questions and just make sure we're all thinking about the contingency and how we're going to mitigate any potential problems through project execution.
yeah. Be curious. That's
Yes.
important. And the one thing that you said that I respect is promoting from within. I have a strong belief that I'd rather stretch somebody that's internal, that might not be as experienced or ready for the role as an external candidate. However, I can stretch them. And I believe that people do amazing things when they're stretched, and we actually give them permission to, hey, I know you're outside of your comfort zone right now, but we're putting our trust in you to actually get to where we need you to go.
I think some of our some of our newer managers are a little, they're not comfortable yet being uncomfortable. That's the one the text I've been using a lot. I need you to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And that's exactly right. Is don't be afraid to challenge the staff. They want it. They want responsibility. They want to be challenged with new stuff. And it's amazing. I promoted people within it that came from, frankly, I didn't even think of it, came from the team members. The team members said, we'd like this person to lead. And I'm going, this person? He's never had that opportunity in his life. It's been an absolute fantastic decision, right? And I didn't make it. The team did. They chose their own leader. I love it. It's fantastic.
Yeah, isn't that amazing when they come to you and they basically say, hey, here's the person that deserves to be promoted? And
It's
then that leader who's just been promoted already has the team's buy-in,
mhm.
right?
Yeah.
You said something there, Neil, that resonated with me, and that was, almost how do you have a tough conversation with when a new manager has a team, or you're talking to your direct reports and whatnot?
Mhm.
How do you handle those direct, tough conversations and still keep, the culture, the positivity,
Yeah.
the trust going the right way?
There's always going to be some of those. You
Yeah.
can't avoid them. And that actually, you should never avoid them, right? It creates very, very bad results if you don't deal with issues quickly and promptly, because they can spin out of control, right? And also, your other team members see this, right? They see if you have an underperforming employee or manager, it reflects poorly on the entire culture. They're allowed to get away with it, right? It just doesn't promote what we're looking to do. But the key issue, I think, and what I've always tried to do is to approach it from a point of empathy, right? So be empathetic. Make sure you understand their emotions. Never provide those feedback without being able to see the person in their eyes, be able to understand what they're feeling at the time. We're human beings. Right? We're highly emotional. EQ is a major thing that we train across the board in our organization because it is so important. I forget the term that they use, but it had something to do about we're just like we're robots with emotions, right? We can do stuff, but we are primarily emotionally driven, and we always have to take that into account because it's anything from external factors from your home life to pressures at work all contribute to that. And understanding who you are and how you respond to people is also extremely important. And to thyself be known, right? So that if you know yourself, you know what your triggers are, you understand, okay, I'm going to have this happen. I've just got to go back to that adult state of mind and have the conversation and get to a resolution. Just make sure it's understood. This is why we're having it. Understand their point of view, but also make sure they understand why it's happening.
Yeah, it's funny you talk about EQ, and
Mm.
when I have the fortunate ability to go around the world and talk to many leaders, and everybody remembers the best leader they had, and everybody remembers the worst leader they had. And when I ask that question in a forum, the amount of hands that go up with the worst leader are it's quicker than the best leader, unfortunately, right? Because I think leadership's contagious. It's when you talk about EQ, one of the big things that comes up with bad leaders is the thing that they remember the most is the manager just didn't understand them, or the
Mm.
manager or leader just didn't really care who they were, right? And the best leaders get to know who they are, what makes them tick, what's their partner's name, how many kids do they have, things like that along the way. And isn't it funny, just little things like that actually help in an enormous amount in creating that family of a culture in that company, right?
Yeah. Authenticity,
Yeah.
right? It is being authentic. I mean, I've seen some managers try to fake that, and it's so easily seen. You have to be authentic. You actually do have to care,
Yeah.
right? If you try to pretend that you care, it's not. It never works very well. You need to be your authentic self. You need to bring the whole self yourself. Hey, I know I have what's called an angry child, and it can rear its ugly head at times. It's the passion, it's just the energy, but I have to understand I need to keep it under control. And sometimes it's interesting. I said some people say, "Well, I brought this up and you didn't do anything." I said, "Well, because I can't react to everything, right? I need to show a bit of calmness as we deal with some of the things to kind of make sure we don't go off the rails, make sure we look at it, we sit back, we breathe, we let it wash over us, and then we think about before we respond." I don't always looking for managers who are the first to respond. I want managers and teammates that will think about their response so they provide a thoughtful response.
So there's an actual famous survey that was done through Harvard Business Review, and they talk about self-awareness as a leader. And you just talked about that. 95% of leaders think they're self-aware, but only 12 to 15% are self-aware, right? So how do my behaviors affect me is one thing, but more importantly, how do my behaviors affect you? And you just talked as a very self-aware leader when you said, "Hey, I'm pretty high drive. You know, there's a little bit of madness that comes out of me, but I have to tone that back sometimes when I know who I'm talking to, and that's extremely powerful, right?"
Hmm. Absolutely.
Neil, if I look at leadership, and there's always a bit of curiosity that comes within any leadership role. So how does curiosity play into your leadership approach?
So I think I touched on it briefly before, but it is asking questions, right?
Yeah.
And it's funny because we're changing our entire philosophy around sales on the same principles in terms of engaging with our clients by asking questions, getting to the root of their problems, being, like you said, curious, right? To understand what they need from us, not always what we're trying to sell them, but what they actually need and marrying the two together, right? So when it comes internally, it's the same thing. It's like what I've tried to instill, and I've learned this. You always think you want to have the same person that you are, and like a little clone machine. I think this world's not big enough for more than one of me. So what you have, what I got learned to that, it's like don't expect them to be exact, but try to by getting them to ask questions, by you asking questions, they're kind of preparing them to say, "This is how I think. This is how I think through these problems, and I want you to think in a similar manner, not the exact same manner, but make sure at least you're covering the points that need to be covered that are important, and that you have a better then you know when you come to me, I thought about these things already. Great. I mean, we don't need to talk about it, right? So I try to lead with that. I try to always lead with asking, well, this isn't working. Okay. Why do you think it's not working? Not like, okay, well, throw it out and start again. No, no, no. Let's ask questions first, right? Start with asking questions because then and I find it also, it enables the conversation. If you don't get your defensive and you start getting just asking why you feel this way, right? Why are you reacting this way? How can we help you manage this problem? So always through questions, I think finding that curiosity is hugely important. I make sure my executive management team is doing that as well, both within the team and also to their reports.
When you're talking about what we've talked a lot about today, culture and just learning and getting people to the next level, you've at this point in this amount of time and tenure you've been at Powerhouse have managed multiple generations now on how they need to be within the culture.
Yeah.
How do you actually create that strategy and make sure you're building a long-term culture plan in specifically, Neil, a high-tech environment as Powerhouse is? So you're dealing with multiple generations in a high-tech environment. How do you just make sure that that's sticky and no matter what generation we're talking to?
Yeah, some of the new generation loves to throw everything out and start from scratch. It's like the thing, like, really, come on, guys, like we've been around for 30 plus years. I think we know how to do a few things, but what you have to do is find a balance between making sure they feel that they have a voice at the table, that they're being heard. I think again, active listening from managers is extremely important to make sure that you get from them what they're trying to purvey, but also understand if it ain't broke, don't try to fix it, right? Like we've been doing things a certain way. I always tell, hey, challenge us on anything we're doing. Always want to be able to do that because there's continuous improvement to be had everywhere. But don't change it until we as a group decide this is the best way forward, right? So we want your input, but we are providing a solution that is a corporate. It's from Powerhouse. It's not from an individual. It's from our team. So therefore, in order to make sure we're providing the highest quality, the best results, we got to make sure it's not an individual solution. It's a team solution. So everyone collaborates together. They get to have their input, but don't throw away like 30 years of great knowledge, engineering knowledge. Let's find out ways to improve it, constantly improve it. So that's how we
Yeah.
kind of try to find that balance.
And that must be a hard balance because in a high-tech world, things change daily, hourly, right? It's the ever joke. I buy buy my cell phone tomorrow, and an hour later it's outdated. Right? It moves that fast, right?
I mean, we have a software division we're trying to start, so we're actively working on it. We have a set of tools we're looking to try to make that into a product now, and it's evolved. It's gone through two or three iterations already because we've had to pretty much throw it out and say we have to start again because we found that the foundation wasn't there, and that's okay. It was again fail fast and fail cheaply, right? So get it back, make sure don't hide it, deal with it head on, and make sure we're on the right path. Trying to build a skyscraper on a pile of quicksand, it's a disaster waiting to happen. So don't be afraid to challenge yourself on that and make sure are we going in the right direction and make sure we're getting input from all the different members. And in this case, we are definitely going to be hiring from outside because we're not a software company. We've been a custom engineering services company for so long. So we're definitely looking at bringing some of that expertise in-house to help challenge what our perceptions on how a software company should be worked and to learn
Yeah,
faster.
absolutely, absolutely. Neil, I have a couple more questions for you, and then
Sure.
I'm going to let you get on with your day because you've been incredibly generous with your time today. So, but I do have a couple more questions. So, the one that I want to address is if I say, "Hey, Neil, what is the one team value that you never compromise on, no matter the situation?" What would that be?
I can sum it up in one word, and that's integrity.
Okay.
So, I always refer to this as a team. I said it takes, years and decades to develop your reputation and nanoseconds to destroy it. You have to have a high degree of integrity. Again, it leads to trust with your customers and your clients. If you don't have that, it's you don't have a real relationship. And for us, it's so important to us to have long-term relationships with our customers. It's not transactional. We've got customers. I mean, our claim to fame is essentially every second aluminum beverage can you drink from in North America, one of my systems have touched it, right? Because we're dealing with a company that deals with 48% of the beverage stock material in North America.
Yeah.
And trust me, I have less hair because of dealing with them, but we've been dealing with them for over 15 years because they trust us. They know we have integrity. One of our core values is own it, which means that if we screw up, and we will, I tell clients that we're not perfect, right? We will make mistakes, but it's how we deal with those mistakes that differentiates us from our competition. We make sure we own it. We make sure we discuss it up front. We understand the impact and we move forward, right? If we're not going to hit, so production is huge for us, right? So everything that we do when it comes to modernization deals with a production line of some sort. And therefore, we have to have a plan to make sure that production line is back up and running when we say it will be, which means sometimes you got to take 5 steps backwards. Like you thought you were going to make it happen, you've got to have a gate and say it's not happening. We've got to revert. No one wants to hear that, but if you don't do it, you will pay for it tenfold. So yeah, integrity is
Yeah, integrity is huge. And one of my favorite lines is integrity is making sure you do the right thing when nobody's watching.
exactly
Right?
that's great.
It's so true. And I really liked how you said when I talk to a client, we'll actually say, yeah, we're going to make some mistakes along the way. And as a client, if I was a client of yours, I'd appreciate that because I love that honesty. I love that openness. I love that transparency. And I also love leaders when they say, I don't know the answer to that, but let me find out for you. I think it shows so much more integrity than trying to do the hubbada hubbadas and try to pretend and get through an answer that you don't know, as opposed to saying, you know what, I don't know that, and that's okay. I don't know that, but
Or
I
I'd
can.
like to think about it, right? I want to be thoughtful in my response. I mean, I could give you an answer right now, but it's not like let me really give you some a
Sure.
real answer, one that I've given some thought on, than versus just spewing and trying to look like the smartest person in the room when you are
Yeah,
never the smartest person.
you're
You're in the
never.
wrong room if you're the smartest person in the room.
That's right. You're in the wrong room. Exactly. Neil, my last question before I let you get on with your day is if I had to say, hey, Neil, what do you want your legacy to be
Mhm.
when one day you leave Powerhouse, you move on? Every leader doesn't know always their exact plans with the company they're with. But if I said, hey, at the end of the day, when we're talking about Neil Nicholson and Powerhouse, what would you like your legacy to be, and what would
Mhm.
you like people to talk about around the table?
Oh, that's a great question. I think it really is about enabling teamwork. I've created a platform for which people can create a career from, not a transaction. Right now, I see a lot of people that move from company to company to company. We have a lot of long-term employees, which I'm very proud of because I think we keep thinking about that when it comes to their entire path and the journey within Powerhouse. We want people to have a career at Powerhouse. We want to create a platform where they're enabled to pursue their passions and find a meaningful output for it to happen. And I think we're succeeding at that. So if people remember me by from that would be, yeah, I was able to create that platform from which people have been able to create both a career and a family and have been able to do all these things together and being fulfilled, right? So that they feel they're fulfilling their purpose in life.
What an awesome answer. I appreciate that. Neil, with that, I want to thank you, one, for your leadership style, because, like I said earlier in the podcast, is that people always remember the best leader, but they always remember the worst leaders. From your answers today, I know that you'll probably get people raising their hand when they think of best leaders that they've worked with. We're allowed to make mistakes along the way,
Yeah.
but you've been generous with your time today. I appreciate you, and thanks for being on the show.
Thank you, Jason. It was great. Great talk to you.
If you loved that session and that conversation as much as I did, would love to have you join our People Playbook community in the link below.